The security footage played for the seventh time, and every alien in the room flinched at the same moment. The black creature on the screen moved like liquid shadow, six limbs working together as it tore apart a sedation drone worth more than most starships. Supervisor Kroloff paused the video with one of his forearms. His blue-gray scales had gone pale. "That was our last attempt," he said quietly. "The Melodari empaths, the Quarren pheromone specialists, the Tessari telepaths. Every species on this station has tried to calm this creature. Every species has failed." The conference room fell silent. 12 different aliens sat around the curved table, representing the finest minds in wildlife preservation. None of them had answers. Dr. Hellies clicked her mandibles in frustration. The insectoid scientist had spent 3 months studying the creature. "The Vorax cub is deteriorating," she said. "Stress hormones are destroying its organs. If we cannot find a solution within 30 cycles, the Council will vote to end its suffering." No one argued. They had all seen the cub. They had all felt its rage, its terror, its desperate violence. The last juvenile Vorax in existence was dying of fear, and the greatest minds in the galaxy could not save it. The door opened. A human walked in. Kroloff turned all 4 eyes toward her. Dr. Nadia Reyes was new to the station, transferred from Earth's orbital research facility just 2 weeks ago. She was small by human standards, with dark hair tied back and calm brown eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "I apologize for my lateness," she said, taking an empty seat. "I was reviewing the case files." Dr. Hellies made a dismissive sound. "The files are incomplete. You cannot understand this creature from data alone. It must be observed directly." "I agree," Nadia said. "That is why I am requesting access to the enclosure." Several aliens shifted uncomfortably. Warden Bryn, a massive bear-like Thalari who ran animal containment, let out a low growl. "7 of my people are in medical recovery. That creature has hospitalized everyone who entered its space. I understand the risk." "Do you?" Kroloff leaned forward. "Humans have been part of galactic society for only 40 years. Your species has no experience with Vorax. They are apex predators from a death world. Their claws can cut through ship hull. Their reflexes are faster than anything we can measure. What makes you think you can succeed where we have failed?" Nadia considered the question carefully. Then she said, "Because I have been reading your reports, and I believe everyone has made the same mistake." The room went very still. "The cub is not being aggressive," Nadia continued. "It is being defensive. Look at the footage again. Every attack happened after something entered its space. Every act of destruction targeted objects that moved toward it. The sedation drones, the feeding robots, the simulation projectors. The cub sees threats everywhere because everything that approaches it acts like a threat." Dr. Hellies clicked sharply. "We approached it with care, with caution, with every calming technique known to science." "You approached it with fear," Nadia said simply. "I watched the recordings. Every handler who entered that enclosure was terrified. Their hearts raced. Their bodies released stress chemicals. Their movements were stiff with tension." She paused. "Predators recognize prey behavior, and prey that enters a predator's space is either a threat or food." Silence stretched through the room. Warden Bryn broke it first. "You are suggesting that we frighten the creature? We are trained professionals." "You are trained professionals from prey species worlds," Nadia said gently. "Your ancestors evolved to fear predators. That fear is written into your biology. You cannot control it any more than you can control your heartbeat." Kroloff's scales had shifted to a thoughtful gray. "And humans are different. Humans are from Earth, a death world." Nadia smiled slightly. "We did not evolve to run from predators. We evolved alongside them. We tamed wolves, rode horses. We kept cats in our homes and called them family. My ancestors looked at creatures that could kill them and saw something worth understanding." The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Kroloff spoke. "What do you need?" "Access to the observation deck. Time to watch the cub without interference. And permission to enter the enclosure when I am ready. That could take months. It could take days. I will not know until I observe." Warden Bryn shook his massive head. "This is madness." But Kroloff was already nodding. They had tried everything else. They had nothing left to lose except the last Vorix in existence. Granted, he said. Do not make me regret this, Dr. Reyes. Nadia stood and walked to the door. Before she left, she turned back. One more thing. I will need to submit a supply requisition. Something from the recycling bay. What kind of supplies? Simple things. I will send the list. She left them wondering. An hour later, Nadia stood on the observation deck, looking down into the reinforced enclosure. Shattered technology littered the floor. Claw marks scarred the walls. And in the far corner, pressed against the barrier like it wished it could disappear, crouched a creature of nightmare and shadow. The Vorix cub was beautiful. Black fur absorbed the light. 6 limbs folded close to its body. Amber eyes burned with fear and fury and something else. Something Nadia recognized. Loneliness. The cub had lost its mother to poachers. It had been ripped from its world, transported through the cold dark of space, and placed in a cage surrounded by creatures that smelled of terror. It had been alone and afraid for months. Nadia pressed her hand against the observation glass. Hello, she said softly. I know you cannot understand me, but I understand you, and I am going to help. The cub watched her with those burning eyes that it did not look away. 3 days passed without incident, and the station began to whisper to Dr. Hellies found Nadia on the observation deck at dawn, exactly where she had been for 72 hours. The human sat cross-legged on the floor, a data tablet in her lap, her eyes fixed on the creature below. She had not tried to enter the enclosure. She had not attempted contact. She had simply watched. This is pointless, Dr. Hellies said, her mandibles clicking with irritation. Passive observation was already attempted, multiple times, by experts with centuries of combined experience. Nadia did not look up from her tablet. How long did those experts observe before attempting intervention? Standard protocol. 6 hours of baseline behavioral mapping before initial contact. 6 hours. Nadia finally raised her eyes. They were tired but focused. I have been here for 3 days, and I'm only beginning to understand the patterns. Your experts gave 6 hours to a traumatized infant from a death world, then wondered why it reacted with violence. Dr. Hellies went still. In her culture, such direct criticism would be considered deeply offensive. But Nadia spoke without malice. She spoke like someone stating a simple fact. The previous observers, Nadia continued, how did the cub react to their presence? Agitation, stress responses, the standard predator threat display. And how did the observers feel during those 6 hours? Dr. Hellies hesitated. They were cautious, appropriately wary. They were terrified. Nadia turned back to the enclosure. I have read the biometric reports. Heart rates elevated. Stress hormones flooding their systems. Bodies rigid with tension. They sat on this deck and radiated fear so strongly that even I can see it in the footage. She paused. The cub is a predator. It evolved to detect fear. Every observer who came before me told it the same thing with their bodies. I am prey. I am afraid of you. You are a monster. Below them, the Vorix cub shifted in its corner. Its amber eyes flicked toward the observation deck, then away. It had been doing that for 3 days. Checking, watching, waiting for the threat to materialize. I'm not afraid of it, Nadia said quietly. And that confuses it. Dr. Hellies studied the human with new interest. How can you not be afraid? It could kill you in seconds. I grew up on Earth, a death world. Nadia smiled slightly. My grandmother kept cats. My uncle raised horses. My neighbor had a dog that weighed more than I did and could crush bone with its jaws. I learned very young that fear is not the same as respect. That predators are not monsters. That the most dangerous creatures can also be the most loyal. She gestured toward the cub. Look at it. Really look. What do you see? Dr. Hellies forced herself to observe without the filter of instinctive terror. The cub was pressed into the corner, surrounded by the wreckage of failed attempts to help it. Its fur was dull. Its body was thin. Its eyes darted constantly, searching for danger. It looks tired, Dr. Hellies admitted. It is exhausted. It has been in fight or flight mode for months. No creature can sustain that. Its body is burning itself out because it cannot feel safe for even a moment. Nadia's voice was soft with something that might have been compassion. It does not need sedation. It does not need chemical calming. It needs to feel safe, and nothing on this station has given it that. Then what will? Nadia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I have been watching its behavior patterns. When it eats, when it sleeps, what sounds make it tense, what movements catch its attention. She pulled up data on her tablet. There is one consistent pattern. When the cub is most calm, it seeks enclosed spaces. It wedges itself into corners. It presses against walls. It tries to make itself small. Dr. Hellies tilted her head. The behavior? Exactly. On its home world, Vorax cubs would spend their first year in dens. Small, dark, enclosed spaces where predators cannot reach them. This cub was taken from its mother too young. It never had that security, and nothing on this station resembles a den. Nadia stood, stretching muscles stiff from 3 days of stillness. Every intervention has given it more space, more light, more stimulation. The exact opposite of what it needs. Then what do you propose? Nadia smiled. Something very simple. Something so obvious that everyone overlooked it. She walked to the communication panel and contacted Warden Bryn in containment. I am ready to submit my supply requisition. Bryn's gruff voice crackled through the speaker. Finally, what do you need? Specialized containment field? Sedation equipment? Protective armor? An empty cardboard box? Silence. Repeat that, Bryn said slowly. A cardboard shipping container. Approximately 1 meter square. Empty. No technology. No modifications. Just a box. More silence. Then, Dr. Reyes, are you feeling well? I am feeling perfectly well, Warden. The requisition is simple. I can have it delivered to the enclosure airlock within the hour, if you approve. A box, Bryn said flatly. You want to give an apex predator from a death world? A box. Yes. The creature has destroyed military-grade containment equipment. It has shredded drones worth more than my yearly salary. And you want to get it cardboard? Yes. Another long pause, then a sound that might have been laughter. Human, you are either brilliant or insane. I cannot tell which. Perhaps both, Nadia said pleasantly. Is the requisition approved? Approved. May the stars have mercy on you. Dr. Hellies watched as Nadia ended the call. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious. Nadia turned to look at the cub one more time. It was watching her again. Those amber eyes tracked her movement with predatory precision. But there was something else in them now. Something that had not been there 3 days ago, curiosity. On Earth, Nadia said, we have a saying about cats. If it fits, it sits. Give a cat a box, and it will climb inside. Not because it needs to, because it wants to, because the box feels safe. She headed for the door. I think our friend down there is the same. It just needs somewhere to hide. And if you are wrong, Nadia paused at the threshold. Then I will be hospitalized like everyone else. But I do not think I am wrong. She glanced back at the enclosure, at the frightened creature huddled in the corner. I think that cub has been waiting for someone to understand. And I think I finally do. She left Dr. Hellies standing on the observation deck, staring at the Vorax cub and wondering if a cardboard box could really save a life. 47 species gathered to watch a human die. They did not say it out loud, of course. The observation gallery above the Vorax enclosure was packed with scientists, administrators, and curious onlookers who claimed to be there for research purposes. But Warden Bryn knew the truth. He had seen the betting pools. The odds on Dr. Nadia Reyes surviving physical contact with the cub were not good. Nadia stood in the airlock, holding a cardboard box that IT was brown. It was simple. It had once held medical supplies from a cargo bay. Now it held nothing at all. Just empty space and folded cardboard walls. Final check. Bryn's voice crackled through her earpiece. Vitals are stable. Emergency extraction team is standing by. If the creature charges, drop and cover. The team will have you out in under 3 seconds. Understood. Nadia took a slow breath. Opening the airlock now. The door hissed open. The Vorax cub noticed immediately. Its head snapped up from the corner where it had been resting. 6 limbs unfolded with liquid grace. Claws slid from their sheaths, each one long enough to open a human from throat to HIP in the observation gallery. Someone whimpered. Nadia stepped into the enclosure. She walked slowly, deliberately. Her footsteps were soft and steady, carrying no urgency and no fear. She did not look directly at the cub. She kept her gaze slightly to the side, watching it only from her peripheral vision. Direct eye contact was a challenge in most predator species. She would not make that mistake. The cub rose to its full height. It was still young, but already it stood taller than Nadia. Black fur bristled along its spine. A low rumble built in its chest, a sound that vibrated through the floor and into Nadia's bones. She kept walking. The gallery had gone completely silent. No one breathed. No one moved. They watched the human cross the killing floor with a cardboard box in her arms, and they waited for the inevitable. Nadia reached the center of the enclosure. She stopped. Slowly, carefully, she bent down and placed the box on the ground. Then she straightened, turned, and walked to the far wall. She sat down with her back against the barrier. She pulled out a data tablet, and she began to read. The cub did not move. Neither did Nadia. An hour passed. The cub remained frozen in its corner, muscles coiled, eyes fixed on the human. Nadia remained against the wall, reading her tablet, occasionally glancing up without staring. The box sat in the center of the enclosure, untouched and unremarkable. Warden Bryn shifted uncomfortably in the command center. "What is she doing?" Dr. Hellies, watching from beside him, clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. "Waiting. For what?" "For the cub to decide she is not a threat." Another hour passed, then another. The crowd in the observation gallery began to thin. Boredom replaced fear. Whatever they had expected to happen, it was not this. Not sitting, not reading, not endless, patient stillness, but Nadia understood something the others did not. The cub had been trapped in a cycle of fear and violence for months. Every creature that entered its space brought noise, movement, urgency. They came with equipment and plans and the desperate energy of people trying to fix a problem. Nadia brought nothing. She offered nothing. She demanded nothing. She simply existed in the same space as the cub, calm and quiet and utterly unthreatening. The cub did not know what to do with that. In the third hour, something changed. The cub shifted its weight. Its fur smoothed slightly along its spine. The rumble in its chest faded to silence. It was still watching Nadia, but the intensity had changed. Where before it had been tracking a threat, now it seemed almost confused. Nadia noticed. She did not react. She kept reading. The cub took a step forward. In the command center, Bryn reached for the emergency extraction control. Dr. Hellies stopped him with a gentle touch on his arm. "Wait." The cub took another step, then another. It was not approaching Nadia. It was approaching the box. That IT circled the cardboard container slowly, head low, nostrils flaring. The box smelled like nothing, like cardboard and dust and emptiness. It held no technology, no chemicals, no hidden threats. It was just a box. The cub tapped it with one massive paw. The cardboard flexed. The cub flinched backward, fur bristling. Then it leaned in again, sniffing the corner where its claw had bent the material. Nadia watched from the corner of her eye. Her heart was beating fast, but her body remained still. This was the moment. Everything depended on what happened next. The cub circled the box again. It pushed its head inside the open top, looking around the dark interior. Then it pulled back out and sat down, staring at the cardboard like it was the strangest thing it had ever encountered. Minutes passed. The cub stood again. It circled once more. Then, with a movement so fluid it seemed impossible for a creature so large, it stepped into the box, its body curled around itself, limbs tucked close, tail wrapped around its nose. The cardboard walls pressed against its fur from all sides. The box was barely big enough to contain it. The cub closed its eyes. In the observation gallery. Someone gasped. In the command center. Dr. Hellies made a sound that might have been laughter or tears. It worked. By the stars, it actually worked. Warden Bryn stared at the screen, at the apex predator from a death world curled up in a cardboard box like a house cat. "Ow," he whispered. "How is that possible?" Nadia's voice came through the comm, soft and warm. Because sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. It did not need technology. It did not need chemicals. It needed somewhere to feel safe. She paused. It needed a den. The cub did not move. Its breathing slowed. Its muscles relaxed. For the first time in months, the last Vorax in existence was at peace. Nadia smiled and returned to her reading. She would wait here as long as necessary. Hours. Days. However long it took for the cub to wake and see her still there, still calm, still patient. Trust could not be rushed. But it could be earned one cardboard box at a time. 14 hours of sleep. The station's medical team had never recorded anything like it. Since its capture, the Vorax cub had never slept for more than 2 hours at a time. Its body had been trapped in constant alert, burning energy faster than it could replace, slowly destroying itself from the inside. Now it slept like the dead, curled in a cardboard box, while a human sat 3 meters away reading reports on her tablet. Nadia did not move when the cub finally stirred. She had been awake the entire time, watching over it like a guardian. When those amber eyes blinked open and found her still there, still calm, still unthreatening, something shifted in the creature's gaze. IT did not leave the box. IT simply watched her through the gap in the cardboard flaps. And for the first time, there was no fear in its eyes. Only curiosity. Doctor. Helly's arrived at the observation deck an hour later, carrying a steaming cup of something that smelled like burnt vegetation. She found Supervisor Kroloff already there, all 4 arms folded across his chest, staring down at the impossible scene below. I have reviewed the medical data, Helly said quietly. The cub's stress hormones have dropped by 60%. Its heart rate has stabilized. Its neural patterns show signs of actual relaxation. She paused. I have never seen anything like it. Kroloff did not respond for a long moment. Then he said, the human has not left the enclosure. She refuses to. She says leaving now would break the trust she has begun to build. Trust. Kroloff tasted the word like it was foreign. We spent months trying every scientific method available. We used chemical compounds designed by the finest minds in the galaxy. We employed empaths and telepaths and behavioral specialists. And a human solved the problem with patience and a box. Helly's clicked her mandibles. It is not just the box. It is her. Watch. Below, Nadia was speaking softly. Her words were meaningless to the cub, but her tone was not. It was warm and steady, the kind of voice a mother might use with a frightened child. She was not trying to approach the cub. She was not demanding anything. She was simply filling the silence with something other than fear. The cub's ears twitched toward her voice. Its tail uncurled slightly from around its nose. She communicates without communication, Helly said. She offers safety without promising anything. She exists in its space without claiming any territory. The scientist shook her head. It goes against everything we know about predator behavior. Predators establish dominance. They claim resources. They defend territory. Humans are predators, Kroloff pointed out. Yes, but they are predators who evolved to cooperate, to share space, to form bonds with creatures that could kill them. Helly's set down her cup. I have been researching human history. Did you know they tamed wolves? One of the most dangerous pack predators on their world, and humans made them into companions, into family. How? The records are not entirely clear, but the leading theory is remarkably simple. Humans and wolves hunted the same prey. Instead of competing, some humans began sharing their kills. The wolves followed. Over generations, that relationship became something more. The wolves became dogs, and dogs became part of human society. Kroloff stared down at Nadia. She's sharing kills with the cub. In a way, she brought it food this morning. Raw meat from the protein synthesizers. She left it near the box and retreated. The cub ate while she was present. Helly's paused. That has never happened before. Every previous feeding attempt required the handler to leave the enclosure entirely. It trusts her. It is learning to trust her. There is a difference. But yes, something is forming between them. Something I do not have a word for. Days passed. Nadia established a routine. She entered the enclosure at the same time each morning. She brought food. She sat in the same spot. She read, or worked, or simply existed in peaceful silence. She never approached the cub directly. She never demanded its attention. She simply made herself available. The cub responded. On day 3, it began eating while Nadia was present. Not hidden in the box, but out in the open, watching her between bites. On day 5, it stopped retreating to the box when she arrived. It would remain wherever it had been resting, observing her entrance without panic. On day 8, it moved closer. Not much, just a few meters, but it chose to reduce the distance between them. A choice, an offering. Nadia noticed. She did not react. She continued her routine, patient and steady, letting the cub set the pace. The station watched in amazement. Word had spread throughout the facility. A human was taming the untamable. The creature that had hospitalized 7 handlers now rested peacefully in the presence of a small woman with a cardboard box and endless patience. Some called it luck. Some called it madness. Dr. Helly's called it something else entirely. She is teaching it that she is safe, Helly's explained to a gathering of scientists. Every day, she proves herself. She arrives. She does not attack. She does not threaten. She does not demand. She simply exists alongside it, asking nothing and offering everything. Offering what? Someone asked. Presence. Consistency. Peace. Helly's clicked softly. The things the cub lost when it lost its mother. The things no amount of technology could replace. On day 12, everything changed. Nadia was reading her tablet when she heard movement. She looked up to find the cub standing outside its box, staring at her with those burning amber eyes. It hesitated. Its weight shifted from limb to limb. Something was happening inside its mind, some decision being made. Then it walked toward her. Nadia's heart hammered in her chest, but she did not move. She kept her breathing slow. She kept her body relaxed. She watched the creature approach with calm she did not entirely feel. The cub stopped 3 meters away. Close enough to strike. Close enough to kill. It lay down, not facing her, not threatening, just present, sharing space. The same space. Nadia let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. "Hello," she said softly. "I'm glad you decided to join me." The cub's ears swiveled toward her voice. Its eyes drifted closed in the observation gallery. Dr. Helly's made a sound that was definitely tears this time. The last Vorix in existence had chosen to trust a human. Not because it had to, not because it was forced, because she had earned it. 1 patient day at a time. The sound that came from the Vorix cub was unlike anything the station had ever recorded. It started as a low vibration, deep in the creature's chest. Then it rose, becoming a warbling cry that echoed through the enclosure like a question asked to empty air. The cub made the sound again and again, its amber eyes fixed on nothing, its body tense with something that was not feared. A doctor. Helly's studied the audio patterns with growing astonishment. "Juvenile communication vocalizations," she said. "The cub is calling for its mother." Nadia stood at the edge of the enclosure, listening. She had heard similar sound before. Puppies crying in the night. Kittens mewing for warmth. Baby animals of every species shared the same desperate need, the same ancient call. "I am alone. Where are you? I need you." She entered the enclosure. The cub stopped calling when it saw her. It watched her approach with those burning eyes, its body language caught between hope and uncertainty. Nadia did not speak. She did not try to comfort it with words it could not understand. Instead, she sat down, closer than she had ever been before. The cub remained frozen for a long moment. Then, slowly, it moved toward her. Its massive head came to rest against her shoulder, warm and heavy and desperately seeking contact. Nadia raised her hand and gently touched its fur. The cub made a sound. Not the calling cry. Something softer. Something like relief. In the observation gallery, Warden Bryn watched with his mouth hanging open. The creature that had hospitalized 7 of his best handlers was now leaning against a human like a child seeking comfort from a parent. Supervisor Kraloth stood beside him, all 4 eyes wide. "I would not have believed it if I was not seeing it myself. She is not its mother," Bryn said slowly. "She cannot replace what it lost." "No," Kraloth agreed, "but she can be something else. something the cub needs just as badly. He paused. Family is not always about blood. Sometimes it is about choice. The weeks that followed transformed the Vorax cub. Nadia introduced enrichment activities drawn from Earth predator rehabilitation programs. Puzzle feeders that made the cub work for its meals. Sent trails hidden throughout the enclosure. Climbing structures and tunnels and obstacles that challenged its body and mind. The cub that had once spent its days in traumatized stillness now played. It stalked synthetic prey with deadly precision, then pounced with an enthusiasm that shook the reinforced floor. It climbed and leaped and explored, discovering its own strength in a way it had never been allowed before. And always, it returned to Nadia. The cardboard box remained in the corner of the enclosure. The cub still slept there most nights, curled up in its makeshift den. But now it also slept near Nadia, sometimes pressed against her side, sometimes with its head in her lap. The station's scientific community struggled to categorize what they were witnessing. It is not domestication, Dr. Hellies insisted during a research meeting. The cub retains all its wild instincts. It is still a predator. It could still kill anything in this facility if it chose to. Then what is it? Kraloth asked. Partnership. Hellies clicked thoughtfully. The same thing humans formed with wolves thousands of years ago. A relationship built on mutual benefit and trust. The cub receives security and companionship. Dr. Reyes receives. She trailed off. What does she receive? Someone asked. Hellies turned to look at the feed from the enclosure, where Nadia was playing a game of hide-and-seek with the cub. The creature would pretend to hunt her, stalking with exaggerated care, while she made a show of trying to hide behind obstacles too small to conceal her. The cub would pounce, knocking her over with careful restraint, and she would laugh. Purpose, Helly said quietly. Connection. The same things the cub needs. The same things all social creatures need. A month into the partnership, Kraloth made the announcement official. Dr. Nadia Reyes is hereby designated as primary handler for the Vorax specimen, he read from the station's records. This marks the first successful handler assignment in the creature's time at this facility. The euthanasia order has been permanently rescinded. The gathered staff applauded. Nadia smiled, but said nothing. She knew the work was far from over. The cub was healing, but it would never be fully domesticated. It was a wild creature, not a pet. It deserved a life that honored its nature. But that was a problem for another day. Kraloth found her on the observation deck that evening, watching the cub explore a new tunnel system she had designed. I owe you an apology, he said. Nadia looked at him with surprise. For what? For doubting you. When you first arrived, I thought you were arrogant. A newcomer presuming to solve a problem that experts had failed to address. He shook his head. I was wrong. You saw something we missed. Something obvious that we overlooked because we were too afraid to see it. You were not wrong to doubt me, Nadia said. I might have failed. The cub might have killed me on that first day. I was not certain my approach would work. Then why did you try? Nadia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, because my ancestors did the same thing. Thousands of years ago, they looked at wolves and saw something worth understanding. They took a risk. They offered trust instead of fear. And that choice changed everything. She gestured toward the cub. I looked at that creature and saw the same possibility. Not a monster, not a threat, just something scared and alone, waiting for someone to understand. Kraloth studied her with new respect. How do humans learn to bond with predators? To see them as partners instead of enemies. Nadia smiled. We did not conquer the wolves. We joined them. We became part of their pack, and they became part of ours. She turned back to watch the cub playing in its enclosure. Every domesticated animal on Earth shares that history. We did not tame them. We befriended them. And the cub? Kraloth asked, what will it become? Whatever it chooses. Nadia pressed her hand against the glass. The cub noticed and bounded toward her, pressing its massive head against the barrier from the other side. I'm not trying to make it into something it is not. I am just giving it a chance to be what it was always meant to be. Safe, healthy, loved. The cub made that soft sound again. The one that was not quite a purr and not quite a cry. The one that meant family. 6 months had passed since a human walked into an enclosure with a cardboard box. The Vorax cub was no longer a cub. It had grown into a healthy juvenile, sleek black fur gleaming, 6 limbs moving with power and grace. Its amber eyes still burned with predatory intelligence, but the fear that had once consumed them was gone. Nadia had named it Bramble, after its habit of hiding in enclosed spaces. The name was a human tradition, a way of acknowledging the bond between them. Bramble was not a pet. It would never be domesticated. But it was hers, and she was its. The Galactic Council had requested a formal report. Representatives from 97 species gathered in the station's main assembly chamber. They had come from across the galaxy to hear about the impossible success. How a single human had accomplished what the finest minds in wildlife preservation could not. Dr. Hellies presented the scientific findings. Charts and graphs and medical data filled the holographic displays. The cub's transformation was documented in precise detail. Stress hormones, sleep patterns, behavioral markers. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. Nadia Reyes had saved a life that everyone else had given up on. When Hellies finished, she turned to Nadia. Dr. Reyes will now explain her methodology. Nadia stood slowly. She was not comfortable with public speaking, but this moment mattered too much to stay silent. I did not do anything special, she began. I did not use advanced technology. I did not employ chemical compounds or telepathic connections. I used something much simpler. She paused. I used patience. I used observation. And I used a cardboard box. Quiet laughter rippled through the assembly. Some of them had heard the story. Many still did not believe it. The Vorix cub was not aggressive, Nadia continued. It was terrified. It had lost its mother. It had been taken from its home. It had been placed in an environment full of creatures that feared it, and it responded to that fear the only way it knew how. She met the eyes of the gathered representatives. Every species that tried to help it approached with fear in their hearts. The cub sensed that fear and saw threats everywhere. A more Vanny delegate raised a limb. And you did not fear it. I respected it, Nadia said. There is a difference. Fear makes you see monsters. Respect makes you see creatures. I looked at that cub and saw something scared and alone. Something that needed help, not control. But the box, another delegate pressed. How did you know it would work? Nadia smiled. Predators need safe spaces. Den behavior is common across many species. On Earth, we have cats that curl up in boxes and dogs that hide under beds and wolves that retreat to dens when the world becomes too much. I recognized the same instinct in the cub. It was not trying to attack everything that entered its space. It was trying to find somewhere safe to hide. The box gave it that. The assembly fell silent, considering her words. Then a delegate from species Nadia did not recognize stood up. Its voice was translated through the chamber systems. Why do humans form bonds with predators? Your history shows that you have tamed wolves, kept cats, ridden horses. Creatures that could kill you. Why take such risks? Nadia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, because they are lonely too. The delegate tilted its head. Explain. Predators are often solitary. They hunt alone. They guard their territories against others of their kind. But they are still social creatures. They still crave connection, even if they do not know how to seek it. Nadia's voice softened. Humans recognized that. We saw ourselves in them. We were predators too, once. Hunters who roamed the plains and fought for survival. We knew what it was like to be alone. So we reached out. She gestured toward the reinforced glass wall that separated the assembly chamber from Bramble's enclosure. The juvenile Vorix had moved close to the barrier, watching the gathering with curious eyes. We did not tame wolves by dominating them. We did not break horses by crushing their spirits. We offered trust. We shared our fires and our food. We made space in our packs for creatures that did not belong there. Nadia turned back to face the assembly. That is what makes humans different. We do not just survive our death world. We bring others home. The chamber was utterly silent. Then Supervisor Krolith stood. Dr. Reyes has done more than save a single creature. She has demonstrated a methodology that could transform how we approach wildlife preservation across the galaxy. He activated a display showing a formal proposal. I am requesting the creation of a new division. Human-led rehabilitation for dangerous species. using the techniques Dr. Reyes has pioneered. The assembly began to murmur. Debate erupted. Some thought the idea was brilliant. Others thought it was madness. How could humans, the newest species in galactic society, teach anything to civilizations thousands of years older? But as they argued, something happened that silenced them all. Bramble pressed against the glass and made sound. That warbling call that Nadia had first heard months ago. The one that meant family. Nadia excused herself from the podium. She walked to the barrier, pressed her hand against the reinforced surface, and smiled. "I have to go," she said to the assembly. "My friend needs me." She left them there, 97 species watching in stunned silence as a human walked away from the most important political gathering of the year to comfort a predator. Inside the enclosure, Bramble bounded toward her. The cardboard box still sat in the corner, battered and worn, but carefully preserved. The juvenile pressed its massive head against Nadia's shoulder, making that soft sound of contentment. Nadia wrapped her arms around its neck. "I know," she murmured. "Crowds are overwhelming. Too many strangers. Too much noise." She stroked its fur gently. "It is okay. I am here." From the observation gallery, Dr. Hellies watched with tears in her eyes. Beside her, Krolith stood in contemplative silence. "They do not understand," Hellies said quietly. "They see an animal being managed. But that is not what this is." "No," Krolith agreed. "It is not. What is it then?" Krolith watched the human and the predator curled together in the enclosure. Two creatures from death worlds, finding peace in each other's presence. A bond that transcended species, transcended language, transcended everything that should have kept them apart. "Family," he said simply. "It is family." In the assembly chamber, the delegates continued their debates. But the image that would stay with them was not the charts or the data or the formal proposals. It was a human sitting in an enclosure with a cardboard box, and a creature that should have been impossible to tame. It was proof that the galaxy had misjudged humanity. They were not just survivors, they were bridge builders, and they would change everything.